Welcome to Watch and Complain, the Hour of Sour.
I dig it.
That was great. This is episode 4, and on this episode, we will be talking about Will's top 10 or his top whatever number favorite Christmas movies. But first, before we go into that, how's your day, guys?
I'm tired.
All right.
I work. That's about as much as I'm ever going to put into a fucking day where I work. I will say, because I have a blood donation this weekend, I'm doing my iron pills for this week. And I tell you, man, nothing makes me more miserable. And I think we've talked about this before, last time that I was donating leading up to that week. Iron pill, your body is not designed to fucking to have iron in it. I don't know how iron's in our blood, because trying to digest this shit is like trying to fucking swallow pancake batter. It's awful.
It's so Magneto can manipulate us. That's why.
Right? It's just, ugh. I hate the week before going to donate.
And how is
Before going to what?
Donate. I've donated blood pretty religiously my entire life.
Donates blood and
wow.
semen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
I've donated.
I just give them all the. I say, hey, that good joke out of Predator 2. Here, can I just leave my underwear? It's got all the different fluid in it. But no, I've donated my blood. What's that?
I don't think when I go to the website, it tells me I'm probably not a good candidate.
Why?
You probably are. You're just a big baby and you're afraid of needles.
I've donated
because I'm on
5
medications.
times. And the 5th time they nicked a nerve. So now anytime I get needles, I get a phantom pain in my left or right arm. It's very troubling.
Is it the ulnar nerve?
I don't know what that means. I'm a nervous guy, but I don't know the nervous.
The ulnar nerve is the nerve that travels down your arm.
Probably. I remember one of the times when I decided to look at it as it was happening, and I had the stress ball, and right as they stabbed it in, I flexed the stress ball, and it spurted out blood, and the lady was like, "Ah!"
Nice.
Yeah.
It's funny. Everybody in my family and the majority of my friends, they just hate seeing needles, and I never had a problem with needles my entire life, and never a problem with seeing the needle go in. But I think it's funny that they always, when they put the needle in and they put this little tiny bit of gauze on it, and they're like, here, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, now you've got this needle fucking jabbed into you, and you can see your blood squirting into this bag that's down beside you, but we put a little bit of gauze over it. So
isn't it kind of amazing? I don't know. Like, I've saved technically 20 lives through donating blood. Who knows how many you've saved?
It's something I'm very passionate about. I always strongly suggest, to people, if you can donate blood, make sure you do donate blood, because it's such a fucking simple thing to do. You literally just sit there. You know what I mean? Then they feed you a bunch of goddamn cookies. So I'm like, of course, me being a fat guy, I'm like, of course I'm going to go after the fucking cookies. But it's such an important thing to do, and it's so important. And for me, I'm lucky. There was some, and eventually we'll get to your top 10, but there was some cold or flu or something I didn't get as a kid. So I have some immunity, and my wife knows what it is. I can't remember what the hell it is. So my blood, and because I'm type O, so it can go to anybody. It goes to like kids and the NICU and stuff like that first. So that always makes me happy to know that my blood is going to save like little kids first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
That way they can grow up to be pretty kids, right, Phil?
No, you can kind of say that they're all yours.
That's right.
Remember that joke with
I've got my fluid in every one of those kids.
Have you guys seen that? Wow.
Nope. Touching that one.
Man, I get so mad at these Redditors for saying wrong stuff all the time.
Like I posted a video.
That's my favorite thing, man, about Reddit. And Phil, you and I have had this fucking discussion. I'm one of those guys that I love to start a fire and walk away. So I'll be like, this is fucking bullshit. All you people are assholes. Go fuck yourselves. And then I'll just walk away.
And I like Phil to be the one who watches.
What these people were saying to you? I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Yeah. I never go back and look at shit that people have said. I don't care.
Yeah. So, by the way,
that's why our numbers are down.
Flu shot?
I don't know.
I got
I
it.
don't know if I'll get the flu shot.
I've never gotten it before, but I thought about getting it this time because I finally know the timeline that it's like November to April.
My
And
dad's very adamant about flu shots. He's gotten them. Jesus Christ, I want to say for like the last 10 or 15 years. And
yeah,
he's very adamant that we get them. For me, the only reason I say maybe not is not
get
really
sick if
going
you do.
outside at all and not around people. So I'd be surprised, very surprised if I got sick.
I still
I
got
just
it.
remember last January, I felt so terrible and lethargic. And I don't think I want to go through that again, although my theory was for that one was because I was both off from Staples and I wasn't playing any video games. So I had nothing, sometimes when you actually have a video game, it's like a challenge in front of you and stuff. And
Totally.
I was just aimlessly browsing the net, didn't have any projects going on. I didn't have like this, obviously.
Mhm.
So I thought about getting it just because it's like, well, it's very easy to make sick when you're lying around, in bed and just
Oh, it's
sleeping
very
all day.
important to have a hobby.
Yeah.
I know when I don't have a video game to play, I'm like,
A hobby, Rob. A
I'm
hobby.
missing
hobby.
my Pac-Mans and my
You,
Q-Berts
you play puzzles.
and my
you,
Tomb
you,
Raiders.
you do those. You twiddle the joysticks on your puzzles.
So
I do-
my
if you
top 10
notice
Christmas
behind me,
movies.
Before we
notice-
get to your
notice
top
that-
10 Christmas movies,
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Hold on, there's a
Rob
picture,
is
you can
talking
see
about
that-
a puzzle.
That's right. That's what it's going to be. It's taped up to the wall. That's what it's supposed to be. And this is my little puzzle table that currently I'm wrapping presents on. But
I thought you would have been a
this is-
family puzzle guy.
No, but nobody in this fucking family likes puzzles except me. They all like the puzzles after they're done. So my wife,
I could
for
see Rob just
Christmas,
getting
because I really want it.
Oh, yeah, you frame them.
She bought me a 3,000 piece Star Trek Next Generation puzzle because she likes Star Trek Next Generation. She wants to put it up on the wall. I'm like, oh yeah, this will be fun for me to do. 3,000 fucking pieces, and there's a puzzle she wants to get. I believe it's a Ravensburger puzzle. I believe it's 48,000 pieces. It's a Disney puzzle.
Ravensburger is really
if you
good.
get me that one, that's the last puzzle I'll ever do. 48,000 goddamn pieces. That'd be the last one I ever do.
It's the house.
Yeah, or you
size.
find yourself at the end of it.
You know what? For puzzles for me they're like my fucking a weird zen space for me because I'm not a video game guy. I'm not a social media guy. I read a lot, but a lot of times I'll listen to audiobooks usually while I'm doing puzzling. And a lot of times too, I can listen to Slayer's library or Slipknot's entire discography while I'm fucking puzzling. And my wife will come in and be like, how in the hell is this relaxing in any way to listen to like fucking Hell Awaits by Slayer while I'm trying to figure out which piece goes where?
In a good way.
And I said to her, yeah, that's where my brain goes, and my fucking brain just disappears, while I'm doing that shit. So
It
It
amazes
amazes
you
me
puzzling
though
is
that
my
you're not a
zen
video
space.
game guy.
But I think for me, puzzling is like what it is for video game people. They're like, I go here and clearly you're focusing on what you're doing. And this is just, I don't know because I'm not a video game guy, but you're like, this is my little safe little fucking zen area where I can just do my thing, enjoy myself. Don't need to put a ton of thought into what I'm doing. Just sometimes maybe be on autopilot, and I can just fucking zen right out. And that's how I feel when I'm doing puzzling.
Nice.
I have a question.
Yes.
When do you guys decide not to watch the trailers anymore before going to a movie that you're going to go to?
Rob, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I don't think I ever stop watching trailers. So I'll look for every trailer, and I won't actively go searching for it, but I'll usually just watch official ones. I don't care for fan-made trailers.
No.
But what I will do is completely avoid all social media. So like right now, until the weekend, I am basically ignoring Reddit and Instagram because I don't want any part of Spider-Man spoiled for me.
Yeah.
So I will always continue to watch trailers. I'll never stop watching trailers, but I will completely avoid social media. And I only do that when I really care about it. So like, the Star Wars, the Endgame and Infinity War, stuff like that. I completely avoided social media for stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So over to you, Will.
For me, I'm similar. I'll usually watch the trailer. There are times though where I am so sold on the movie from like the teaser, like for Logan,
Mm.
when the teaser came out and said, I'm like, show me no more, I'm in. Like I'm completely in.
I'm sold.
And
Yep.
Yeah.
because trailers are kind of an art to themselves. I remember one year though, it was actually a New Year's resolution that I kept, and I've kept a lot of New Year's resolutions because I'm superior. Um, but one of them was not to watch movie trailers, which was interesting because it got to the point where I'd see something in the theater, the movie trailer in the theater for the first time. I remember um, seeing the trailer for Inception in theaters for the first time, and it wasn't well, I saw the teaser trailer in theaters for the first time, but I also saw the Inception trailer 3, which to me is the best, one of the best trailers I've seen, that outlines the entire complicated premise of the movie, good premise of action, good characters and stakes. And it's just a mini art of itself. When I tried to avoid it, I remember um, and it's annoying because when I try and avoid it and successfully do avoid it, it's always more satisfying if you know less of a movie going in. It's always more
Absolutely.
satisfying.
Yep.
But the lure of the trailer, I remember Cloud Atlas. That was the year where I didn't watch the trailer, and it was hard because everyone was like, have you seen this trailer?" And like I didn't watch it, and it was only until like 3 days before the movie came out that I saw the 2-minute version of the trailer, which is also very good, in the theater. And I got the sense of like, oh, this is going to be Cloud Atlas. I didn't want to see anything for this, but it was like non-spoilerific and a good trailer. I enjoyed the movie immensely, even though Cineplex, as usual, screwed up the showing by playing English subtitles throughout the whole movie. And then when I complained, they were like, well, you can go home and we'll refund
Whoa.
you. And I was like, I sat and watched the movie. I haven't seen it since, but despite those circumstances, because I find regardless of circumstances, you can still you might go from an A to an A minus or an A plus to an A minus, but regardless of so and so is yapping beside me, your opinion on the movie still mostly stays on point. It's just the mood that swings from it. So for trailers, there's definitely an art to them. Missing them is usually always a good thing because the movie's going to be good anyway. But I like going back and watching, the Suicide Squad trailer or even game trailers. The trailer for Killzone 3 has not a good story at all. The trailer for it is amazing. So I love seeing trailers. Although I have to say, with a movie like Spider-Man and a lot of MCU stuff, especially now, I'm kind of like, when I pretty much know what I'm getting, I don't have a strong desire to see it. Like I didn't have a strong desire to see like another West Side Story trailer. But I remember for The Force Awakens, I successfully avoided the last trailer. Little did I know they were actually not spoiling it, and it was Facebook that like spoiled it for me. But I sometimes feel I've been spoiled enough from movies that I'm like I don't care about Spider-Man spoilers, and it turns out that like nothing they've have spoiler embargoes that you can't talk about, that Disney and I guess Sony was really good at, which is funny because Sony, I remember for Amazing Spider-Man 2 and even Spider-Man 2 in particular, they gave away that his mask was revealed when Harry pulls off the mask, and that really bothered me. I remember seeing it at the time.
But on
But
on that topic, it's
yeah,
like this for Spider-Man specifically. I liked the first trailer. I watched the second trailer, but then I don't want to see these things on YouTube where it's like, here's the first
breakdown.
20
The first 10
minutes.
minutes.
I did. On that note, like, I watched the epilogue for Jurassic World just because.
It's not going to be in the movie.
I hope not. That'd be great if it wasn't. But I think a little bit of it will, at least. They said it's the first part.
Well, it's a
But
prologue, as
I'm
in
still
it takes
still
place
amazed
before.
I'm still
Oh,
amazed that you'll let Jurassic World still continue.
but on the
I watched
topic,
That's a whole other
Through it.
conversation.
but on the topic of Spider-Man, I watched the first two trailers and then that's it. Like on YouTube, recently
Same
they
as
were
me.
showing each enemy and doing like reveals for them. I don't want to see that. Why are you showing that? Oh my goodness, I don't want to see that. I scroll past my subscription feed and I see like little bits. I'm just like, like that kind of thing. Matrix, I watched the first trailer, I'm done. I'm watching it, I don't care.
Matrix, the first trailer is good, the second trailer is not good. The second trailer lets you know more of what kind of movie it's going to be. That deflated my expectations. It's like, oh, they're doing this.
I don't want that. I just like, just give me like, I get other people want more trailers, I get that, but like for me, I analyze these trailers, and like you've said, the least I know the better, because then I'm more surprised when I'm watching the movie itself.
For me, I can't explain it, but my expectation, well, I can. My expectations are low for Spider-Man. Spider-Man Homecoming, I like a lot. It's tied with at least Spider-Man 1, if not even a bit above it for like best Spider-Man movie. It's Homecoming, Spider-Man 1 and 2, top 3. And to me, Far From Home was just really disappointing. Of like, it checked all the boxes, did the requisite action, and it was totally fine, but it felt like the bare minimum. And I nostalgically thought about, for better or for worse, and it is for worse, particularly with the amazing movies, because they're not as good. But you got the sense when they were doing those movies that was the most important movie Sony was doing at the time, with its position in the MCU. And we brought this up many times on the show. It just doesn't feel like it's the most important thing. But I feel for this one, it seems at least somewhat of a blend of Sony's style with the Marvel style. And I've heard a lot of people say that it's the best, one of the best MCU movies to date. Which could very well be hype. I heard hilariously which made me want to see it more, somebody describing it's like the most disappointing thing this year. And it was a guy being interviewed on CBC Radio. And he doesn't spoil anything, but what he uses to describe it as an analogy made me laugh. And you ever have somebody who they give a negative review? Like did you guys see a few weeks ago where, Paul Verhoeven, the director, at all?
Yep.
Yeah. So he's doing a movie called Benedetta about nuns. And somebody from the Associated Press or Time was like, oh, it's terrible. It's like Showgirls in a convent. And then somebody excitedly retweeted, it's like Showgirls in a convent. Yep. So it's like one person's disdain is another person's praise. So my expectations for it are appropriately like lowered. So I think I'll enjoy the movie, even though I don't think I'll see it anytime soon. It'll be interesting because COVID, particularly today, you feel it is like overtaking with everything. It's like 1 in 200 people in our area have it or have had it.
1 in 5 schools in Ontario was shut down
Rob,
because of it.
What tickets did you get? Did you get AVX or IMAX?
I believe I did get AVX.
Yeah. Were they separated seats?
No, I got I found one spot where where I think we are separated because it's just me and Dexter going. Elliott's not going to go.
Does it look like from the seating chart that they have put spaces between people?
I don't remember now. I believe so, but now I do not remember.
Because I got AVX and by the seating chart, it's obvious that AVX they're not spacing people out.
Really?
Yeah, and then I look at the same Cineplex and the seats in like the normal theaters, the non-AVX, and they're spaced out.
Maybe they just want to kill the AVX people.
But it's like the smaller theaters are spaced out. It's just bad choices.
Yeah, we're all gonna die of COVID when we go to see Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's good. That's gonna be the one thing that's gonna get me out of everything.
You know what? I am glad now that I'm double fucking vaccinated. So is Dexter. That's why. Thankfully, Elliot wasn't that interested to go see it. He's not a big fan of going in theaters. But both Dexter and I are double vaccinated. So if we did, I do not want to, and I don't even want to joke about it. But if we were to catch it, at least the hope is we don't die from it because we're vaccinated.
Oh yeah,
it'll just be like a bad COVID.
You won't. Yeah. Right now, it's not even that. Like they're saying, like this Omicron thing is not like super strong issue. It's just very like transmissible. Thank you.
At 10 times the rate. That's what I've heard.
But you know what?
10 times the rate.
I'd rather get a little sick because apparently the vaccine doesn't work against the Omicron variant. I'd rather get a little sick than fucking super.
I've heard the
sick.
other way around. I've heard the vaccine have been pretty good against it.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things where it's like it's at 60% if you have an MRA or not. It pretty much, if you have AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson, it does next to nothing, I've heard on this one. So you have to have an MRA, and if you have an mRNA, you're covered like 50 to 60%, and then you need a booster, which will move you from 60 to 90. It's pretty much what I've heard. The annoying thing is I don't want to get another one.
When are you gonna get a booster? You guys gonna get boosters? I think mine's probably gonna get in January.
Yeah, mine's due for January. I think I got mine in July, and
mine's probably the same.
Not keen on getting one at all. I remember this was like months ago, but it's like, here's the thing, is that, and I know this is off topic, and I have something related to theaters to bring up, but it's like
podcast. That's fine.
I took one for the team. I know it's just like a needle, but it's like I took one for the team. I didn't want it. Nobody wanted it. And I got it. I got it because society, I'm not a selfish person. I'm courteous. I want society to work. But the people who are vaccine hesitant did not get it. They did not get it. So we have to get a third one. And when we get a third one, it's not going to push us over the line. Like, we're just at best going to do as best as we did when the people who weren't getting it still weren't getting it. And I get that it's good for hospitalizations, and obviously that's what you want, but it's annoying to me that it's like, this feels like there's, and I'm going to quote Zack Snyder's Justice League, one of the premier movies of 2021 here, when they talk about the threat of Steppenwolf coming with the mother boxes, and they suggest playing keep away, which is funny because that was the same strategy that the Avengers used unsuccessfully in Infinity War. And Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne says right out the gate, he says, no, that's just delaying loss. It's not a winning strategy. That's what I've been thinking about the assessment of coronavirus. I've been wondering, are theaters doing enough? Because there's no cases linked to theaters, but nobody wants to sit in a room with somebody for 2 hours, particularly the 2.5 hours of Spider-Man, which flies by apparently.
With Omicron and Spider-Man, it'll be very interesting to see if you can't use that anymore. Like, to say theaters can't. Yeah,
I'd argue that theaters, to kind of push Will's argument kind of over the edge, theaters don't care if you catch COVID there, because theaters want to keep running. So they don't give a shit that people are going to get sick in theaters. Theaters are the United States of the entire planet. They don't give a shit if you go there and get sick, as long as they can continue to make money.
I'll be completely honest. I don't care at this point about the people who have purposely said, I'm not getting it for whatever stupid reason. Like, if you have a valid reason, whatever that may be, granted, do whatever you can not to get it. But if you're an asshole and just thinking about yourself, and you just don't want to do it because someone told you should, I don't care. Like, if you get sick, you get sick.
Yep.
I heard something interesting on the radio today, and the lady, she wasn't getting the vaccine, but it wasn't in an anti-vax way at all. She had gotten the MRA. I'm not sure if it was MRA 1 or 2, and she had mixed and matched. I don't think that had much to do with it, but it was basically the 1 in a million had the heart reaction.
Yeah.
Yes, and it basically let her know that, like, you can't get another mRNA vaccine. You have to get like an AstraZeneca booster or a Johnson & Johnson booster, because your heart, or the way that you're reacting to it, is not good. So there are a lot of people who can't, because they're immunocompromised or something, get these vaccines as the 1 in a million type thing. So she was asked, what do I do? My doctor has told me not to get, AstraZeneca or Johnson and Johnson. And this doctor on CBC radio, so it's semi-legitimate, was like, yeah, your pharmacist is wrong, which they can be, but he's like,
Yeah.
your pharmacist is wrong. Okay, how do I then get those vaccines? And he's like, oh, you pretty much have to go vaccine hunting, like drive down to Watertown or across state to get these. This one guy drove 2 hours out of the way to get it. And it's like,
But then she's got a good
is
reason
this
to
is this
vaccine
the
hunt.
strategy we're going with? Like,
Sure.
Yeah,
If you have a valid reason to not get it, or you have a valid reason to go vaccine hunting, sure. But I'm talking about the people who don't have a valid reason.
oh yeah, them, forget them. And it's annoying
Yeah.
because it's like, what if they come close to you? Like, I have distant family members who, everybody has like the crazy uncle or something. He's
But
not my
you
uncle, right?
protected yourself, and that's all that matters at this point.
Well, not exactly though, because it's like, what if they come near you and they have the virus? Like, even though I'm vaccinated, I can still get the virus, especially against this Omicron. So
you can still
it's
catch
not-
it, but the
Yes.
from what I've heard, and I mean, there's so many conflicting fucking stories. That's what happens when you have something like this, a pandemic. But from my understanding, is you will not die. You might get sick, but you will not die from it. For me,
because
it's
I'm young,
amazing.
pretty much,
It's
right?
amazing
No, because
how
if you don't have any underlying conditions, and even if you do and you're vaccinated, you're still not very likely to die in the hospital or even get hospitalized.
my favorite thing about everybody arguing and all the anti-vaxxers and all the COVID deniers, and it remains my favorite thing about something like the coronavirus is viruses do not give a shit what your opinion is. They don't care who you vote for. They just kill you. And that remains my favorite thing. And it's a terrible thing to say, but I'm parts of me are a terrible person and like terrible things to happen to terrible people. So
No, I get what you're saying.
I
Isn't
got
there a
those
sense of,
letters.
like, can we
the
get this
people
over
that
with, right?
refuse to get vaccinated deserve to die. And it makes me very happy when it makes me a little bit sad, because I hate to see people suffer. Unless you're a psychopath, you hate to see people suffer, but you deserve it. And hopefully your suffering will teach at least one other person that thinks that this is all bullshit, that you don't need to be vaccinated. We'll say to them, holy Christ, I think maybe I'll
Family
get
member,
vaccinated.
yeah.
Yep, exactly.
How many deathbed confessions have you guys seen where the person's like, give me the vaccine, and then they're like, it's
they're
too
like,
late.
It's not gonna make no difference. You're gonna fucking die. And can you imagine being stupid enough and ego driven enough to do that, and then to realize, like, holy shit, I'm gonna lose my family, I'm gonna lose my life, I'm gonna lose everything because I'm a fucking idiot.
Yep.
It's got to be the worst feeling in the world, combined with the fact that you're dying of COVID. And I can only fucking hope that the people that you've surrounded yourself with that might be buying into your bullshit will learn from that and will get themselves vaccinated. Because the only way that we beat this is by beating it together. And thanks to democracy, which is a good thing, I'm not saying it's not, we will never all be together. So the thing we have to do is wipe out the people who it's going to kill anyway. And then
I mean, that's the thing. It's just annoying because it's like you said, Mother Nature is the ultimate judge. Like, it doesn't care that I feel good about myself having the two and don't want to get a third. Like, I have to get a third, or if I get it, because the thing is, like,
you're gonna have to keep getting
but
boosters.
if I make one mistake and I get unlucky, then you're fucked.
You're gonna have to keep getting boosters. It's gonna be like the flu shot. I'm not saying this is like the flu, but I feel like we're gonna get enough of a herd mentality that it's gonna be the flu eventually, in a way, and we're gonna just keep getting boosters for it.
But we're always going to have stupid people like these idiots that refuse to get their kids vaccinated for measles. So measles has started coming back. Yeah. Like, those stupid people are always going to exist. And the problem is, and this will be the last thing I discuss about it, because I know we want to talk about other stuff. My argument since COVID, since people bitching about Trudeau, people bitching about Trump when he was running, the problem with, and I'm never going to say it's a majority young people. I used to think it's a majority young people, but it's people, young, old. There's all of them. We don't have any real evil to be afraid of anymore. Our parents' generation had Nazism and World War II, which was
Well,
a
my
very
grandparents.
real fucking thing to be afraid of. Like you could legitimately be afraid of the Nazis and the German Party and the whole, you know what I mean, the whole right that came together, communism, or you know what I mean, taking us over. There's nothing for our generation or the generation before ours to be legitimately afraid of might kill us. Originally, it was supposed to be AIDS, and we effectively beat AIDS. Now it's COVID, and COVID is being like, holy
And
shit, it
global
really
warming.
has wiped
Yeah,
out a
I was
lot
gonna
of fucking
say-
people.
I was gonna say
What?
our kids, it's gonna be climate for
Yeah,
sure.
but
And
that's a
us.
real thing. That's a real thing to be afraid of. Like when
Yeah, not
climate
like a
change hits us.
personhood.
Yeah, there's no synonymous evil that we can all agree is, or the overwhelming majority agrees is evil and will kill us. Now we're understanding climate change, which is going to affect our children and our children's children. But for us and the generation before ours, we've gotten very lazy and we've gotten very selfish and we've gotten very narcissistic, thinking that our opinions matter when they don't, thinking that we matter, which we don't.
That's why we have a podcast.
Right? Yeah, so we can espouse about how much we don't matter. But there's nothing for us to be afraid of, and that's why you get people that decide, oh, you know what? I don't have to get vaccinated from the measles because measles will never kill me. Like,
So am
tell
I
that
right
to the people that
say-
killed.
Am I right to hear, Rob, that what you're basically saying is the only thing left to fear is fear itself?
No, but you're right to hear me say that I hope that humanity burns to death. I hope this planet burns, which we all know it's
Okay.
going to. And it's a mean thing to say, but it's the only thing that's going to teach humanity a lesson.
On that
Same way it taught the
happy
dinosaurs,
note,
wipes them out.
on that happy note,
Let's talk about Christmas.
let's talk about Christmas movies.
Alrighty.
And today we're going to talk about Will's top favorite Christmas movies.
That might have been
Will-
our worst segue.
Will
To go from everybody
Well, I was
deserves
gonna
to
say
die.
this-
Let's talk about
this-
Christmas.
This segment is brought to you by the Taliban, by the way.
Educate your daughters, everybody.
I was going to say, Will, you have the floor, but you totally fucked that up.
I've been editing top 10 Christmas list, which is annoying because I got an email today of like, hey, you got my last email, right? And it's like, yes, but it's the other person on the chain whose responsibility is to do the thing I need to do to release our top 10 Christmas movies. So I'm giving mine because I disagree with the list anyway. This list right here, this is the money. The top 10 list, best Christmas
Okay.
movies to watch.
Is this
This
based-
is Will's list.
Is this your list, or are you doing a top, like,
It's both because my opinion matters the most.
oh my
Like
God.
I can argue for my personal. I can decide.
We're basically a
between
commercial
personal
for
and
another
overall.
podcast this time.
But like I'll say it's a personal list. But I can also I'll also be arguing that this is the best adopt my list because a lot of people will agree with this. Number 10, better watch out. You start with something small. This movie is one of those movies I remember it came out and it was like a small independent movie. And they said it's like an R-rated Home Alone. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting because it's about a kid, Levi Miller, who played Peter Pan in the Flop Pan. And it's actually an Australian movie on a small budget. You know, those indie movies do these really small stories well. And that's how the classics start. You know, I rewatched Hellraiser on assignment recently, and that's not a Christmas movie, but it's like a small movie. You go back to Saw, that's a small movie that started a big franchise. So my point is that a germ of a good idea is very powerful in this movie, which the only big stars that are in it, and they had to lobby to get it, are Patrick Warburton at the beginning and Virginia Madsen, who play the parents, and they leave. And it's kind of like a dark Christmas tale, like almost Grinchy or something. And yet it has nothing to do with Santa Claus.
That's number 10.
Yeah. So in the basic outline of it, and I'll just finish with this, is that boy going through puberty spends a Christmas holiday with his babysitter and his friend, and there are some home invaders, and the tables turn in a completely unexpected and gripping way, the kind of thing where you go, oh, this is what this is about now. So it's great. Everything about it is Christmas in the setting. There's no, you can't confuse it with like, oh, this is actually like a summer movie or something like that. It's a fully perfect use of its Christmas setting. You can't avoid it. Like some, you can't, like, it's like Reindeer Games where you can watch it as an action movie. It's like, no, this is very much a Christmas movie, even though I saw it in like February or March. Anyway, number 10. Number 9, very classic, gooey, likable movie, Love Actually. I liked it a lot when it first came out. I wasn't late to the train on it. I remember my brother actually got it on DVD. Funny enough, my brother, wise as he is now, I don't think he likes the movie that much. A lot of people talk about it not having aged well, but you know, you can nitpick it, and romantic comedies are as thin as paper. What matters is that the emotions and your relationship to the characters have some credibility.
Yep.
And you
And
see
they have
that with,
staying power. That's a movie that has staying power.
yeah. So you see that with the Alan Rickman and Emma Thompson's plotline. You see that with Liam Neeson and Thomas Brody Sangster's plotline. You see that with a lot of the Laura Linney and Rodrigo Santoro. I can name all the Hugh Grant plotline, and it's just Colin Firth. They're all just very good actors. Even the Keira Knightley one of like, I know it's creepy with, and I also think it's probably creepy because it's Andrew Lincoln. But like, it's, you accept the highs and lows of it. It's an interesting plot line and stuff, and it's just a very inspired, emotionally truthful thing. And Richard Curtis, who wrote it and did Four Weddings and a Funeral, among other things, is just really good at getting to the emotional truth of something, however ridiculous it is. And it helps have good actors, like, you know, even Rowan Atkinson showing up for a cameo around Rickman in his small plot line. Very good movie. I don't really have to sell it much, but it has the emotion of it that a lot of good movies are missing. It's the kind of thing that a movie that I don't like, but the rest of my family loves, The Family Stone, in my opinion, is just kind of phony. But yeah, nonetheless, moving on. Number 8 is Just Friends. Actually, this is arguably the weakest movie on my list in terms of being like not a good movie necessarily. I said that because it's just a broad studio comedy. It came out and flopped in November of 2005. 2005, my favorite year of movies, but it basically stars Ryan Reynolds as a record executive who basically has to chaperone or shepherd this baby, teenage Christina Aguilera, young Britney Spears type pop star played by Anna Faris to France. And basically what happens is, due to a funny fiasco on the plane that's not contrived at all and actually like within the character's spirit, Anna Faris is a dumb person who she plays brilliantly. They have to stop over in his hometown in New Jersey, and he basically, it's the Hallmark thing, we've seen it actually since that movie, of the guy coming back to his hometown, and it's basically that kind of story. And cutting again to the emotions of the characters, Ryan Reynolds, I don't know who plays his brother in it, but they're such a good brother relationship and stuff. The romantic part is fine, but in the tradition of many Christmas movies, like A Christmas Story, it's episodic of like, oh, there's Chris Klein popping up for this. Here's the best friend plot line. Here's this. And it's basically like, he was a nerd who was made fun of in school, but now he's Ryan Reynolds, so he's super hot. And then he wants to get out of the friend zone and stuff, and that's like a dicey premise that can be very unlikable, but of course it's kind of tailor made for Ryan Reynolds. And to me, is probably, aside from Deadpool, is one of the premier ones I think of Ryan Reynolds for. Just Friends, it's grown in reputation, so I would recommend watching it. It's probably available on Netflix. Funny, enjoyable, easy to watch movie. Number 7, I'll make this one quick because I only seen it once, Little Women, 2019. This is a movie where Little Women, we all knew the story. It's been adapted countless times, and it's a boring story. But in the mark of true artists, it's not the way that you, it's not the story you're telling, it's how you tell it. And this kind of does a Christopher Nolan like editing thing where it cuts through the emotional logic back and forth through several timelines, through several years, back and forth. And it works, and it's not confusing, and you're with the characters all the way, from the author, played by, I can't, Saoirse Ronan, as she's talking to her publisher, selling her book, as it cuts back to years before. At the same time, it's cutting to the story in her book. This is editing trick that I think fell up short in movies like The Hours, or sometimes even Nolan himself, that I think is really nailed. And the movie was nominated for Best Picture, and I believe it won Best Original Score. It's set at Christmas partially, and there's a lot of snow going on, but it's just good performances, moves at a quick clip. The production design is amazing. All aspects of the production are very well done. When I watched all of the 2019 movies for Best Picture, at the end of the day, I was surprised that I liked this one the most. So I'd 100% recommend Greta Gerwig's Little Women. Number 5, 10,
Number
9, 8, 7, 6.
Yeah, 6.
Number 6, It's a Wonderful Life. Easy one. I just think the premise is an all-timer.
Yep.
Really easy. Well
great thing
done.
about It's a Wonderful Life too. I can't say I've seen all the other ones that you're mentioning, but It's a Wonderful Life. Whenever you think about it, it's almost like Sound of Music, where you forget that Sound of Music is a story about people escaping Nazis. And when It's a Wonderful Life, you forget that it's about a guy that was going to kill himself. You know what I mean? And he discovered that maybe I shouldn't kill myself. You know what I mean? About what the world will be like if I wasn't here. It's a Wonderful Life is a great one, and it's on my list as well. Because it's a good movie, but it's a good Christmas movie.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts so far, Phil?
Don't be super surprised, but I don't think I've ever seen It's a Wonderful Life in full.
For God's sake, Phil.
I think I've seen like little bits here and there.
I watched it on TV last week, and because it's in 4:3 aspect ratio, it's funny because the first time I saw it, I sat through it and was in black and white. I'm like, great, doesn't need to be whatever, but there's actually a colored version.
Yep.
And then watching it on TV, I'm like, yeah, I'd watch the color version. Like, I'd watch the most advanced copy.
I prefer the black and white version to the
I've never seen the color version, so that's probably why. The one criticism I have is that Jimmy Stewart was he supposed to play like a high schooler or something? Like, he looks like fucking 40 years old.
Well, it was the same. Remember, he was in Vertigo, and he was like, I think he was either early 60s or mid 60s, and Alfred Hitchcock was like, the movie Vertigo failed because Jim Stewart is too old to be a love interest. I'm like, Jesus Christ, he's like 65 years old. Fucking right, he's too old. And then you watch It's a Wonderful Life, like, oh yeah, that's a guy that's just either he's just starting college or just out of high school, and you're like, dude, this guy's like 40. Come on.
Yeah, there are times, and we'll come up with it later, but there are times where, like, I think a lot about Will Smith as Deadshot. He's not like Deadshot at all, but you get Will Smith, and that fills the void of the needs of that movie for the character, kind of thing, where it's like, yeah, I know he's not doing Deadshot at all. He's doing Will Smith, but please don't try and do Deadshot or whatever, because you can't. So just do your thing. And it's kind of like people want to see Jimmy Stewart be Jimmy Stewart and that kind of thing. So that's why I think it works. And it's funny for different reasons, even for its like political incorrectness at parts where the girlfriend or whatever is wearing a bathrobe, and then she gets it caught on a tree, and then he doesn't get it back to her, and he's like, whoa, I have an opportunity here.
That woman wants my dick.
Yeah. That's number 6. Number 5, I actually put it back, Nightmare Before Christmas, when I read how acclaimed this was. And it's just such a unique movie. There's nothing like it. I tried watching Coraline. I found it was boring. I feel that studio keeps trying to make that magic happen.
Yeah, I felt that way with Corpse Bride. Corpse Bride feels like trying to recapture Nightmare.
So you don't like Nightmare Before Christmas?
No, I do. It's number 5.
I thought you said that you took it off.
I took it off. I forget what I put on there. I mentioned it to you guys a couple weeks ago. I think it was on the TikTok that I don't even think we ended up posting. I forget what I had in there before. Maybe it'll come back to me, but it wasn't even as good of a movie that I had on there. So Nightmare Before Christmas is actually a movie my dad had on a Laserdisc, and that's how I watched it. You flipped it over, I think, after the what's this, which is the only part like people remember. I haven't seen it in a while, but watching it and figuring out like that they painstakingly did all that stuff. There is the craft to it that's like honest, whereas the other ones, it's like afterwards that studio was trying to get themselves taken seriously for artistic ones, whereas this one plays to me like, oh, this is weird, but let's just do this thing and see how it works out. So it seems pure and honest and genuine that way, and that's what I like it. It doesn't even as a Disney technically distributed movie, it doesn't even fit in with the rest of the Disney movies. It's unique art form at its highest level, and in terms of movie making, all of these movies are original or charming in their own way. That's why they're all distinct, why I have them on my list. Number 4 is Christmas Vacation. It's just for the high number of laugh volume. Even though I don't find Clark Griswold as a character very likable at all, you kind of don't need to, because you relate to, oh, here are the neighbors who are snobby. Here are the relatives you can't stand. I always thought he was an idiot and his character hasn't aged well. But the good news is, and I find this a lot with comedy, is that you don't have to like the characters to laugh at them. So
I'd say even on that same note, you don't need to like the characters to be able to empathize with the situation that they're going in. And that to me is always where Christmas Vacation works so well, is you can empathize with nearly every single goddamn character in the movie. And that's why for me, that's a great selection.
This movie is almost like Seinfeld in a way. Like it's a little bit about
George
nothing. No, but I mean, like in terms of like, it doesn't have this huge plot line. Nope. It's a story about something that could happen to anybody. Just every
sequence of
Christmas.
Episodes. Yeah, it's like, here we're going sledding. To me, what I think of, like, and this should become a new category for us. What's your mental image of the movie when you see this movie? What's the scene that you think of, or the moment that you think of when I think of two, but the first one that I think of for me, that is when he's putting up the Christmas lights and the ladder falls back, and I remember watching it with my dad, and he's in a super high tree that's like ridiculously high, and he's stupid enough to kick it and then go back, which is the dumbest fucking thing. Of me, like, I love, he totally deserves everything, but it's like, if you're stupid,
when he's going in, when he's watching the guys go into his boss's office, and he goes, Merry Christmas, kiss my ass, kiss his ass, kiss your ass, Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah.
I always remember that scene. I'm like, fuck, that's a good fucking scene.
The funny thing that I find is that I don't find Chevy Chase attractive at all. I don't get it, how people considered him, maybe because he had a big chin and was probably taller. But
I always saw him as kind of an everyman. That's where his bread and butter was, as an everyman.
Yeah.
To me,
how the fuck
like
they ever decided, hey, you know who he should be married to? Beverly D'Angelo. How they ever thought those two got together is fucking beyond me, because Beverly D'Angelo, oh my lord. I lost a lot of fucking, speaking of blood donation, I lost a lot of DNA in my earlier days because of Beverly D'Angelo.
For me, he's like, because maybe I'm a bit younger, to me, he's like an everyman for like boomer dads, because I'm closer. Like Rusty is probably actually even closer to your age, like Johnny Galecki from Big Bang Theory. He's like 40 now, and Chevy Chase has got to be like 68, 70. But his viewpoints definitely are. But that's number 4. Number 3, I actually rewatched, and I got it last year for a coworker, and it was like $5 a piece. Economic to a T. This is good. Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the animated version. It's like 29 minutes long, in and out. It's kind of like it's blasphemous to compare it, but Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, which is only 40 minutes, but telling a story efficiently. This one tells it in 30 minutes. Here's the Grinch. Here's why he's bad. Here's the people. Here's the opposition. He wants
is that
to
the classic Grinch?
Yeah.
The 1959 or 61. I think the book is it's either from the 40s, and they adapted it in the 60s, hand drawn, which is why it's at a slower frame rate. It's probably only like less than 24 frames per second. But
Chuck Jones teaching everybody how cartoons are supposed to work.
Well, Alexander watched
the Grinch,
the remake of the Grinch.
With Benedict Cumberbatch. I thought
that was Jim Carrey or something.
No,
there's
the one
Ron
where
Howard.
the one where he's dressed up, the Ron Howard one. Yeah, that's Jim Carrey, but the cartoon one, that's Benedict Cumberbatch.
No, the dressed up one. It's just like No.
I saw the Ron Howard one in theaters, and that was the highest grossing movie of 2000. I find it super bloated, entertaining. I've never rewatched it since watching it in theaters. I laugh at the people who are kind of like, because I wasn't critical of movies. I was like 7 when it came out, but I remember saying like, this is too long. Like, why are we spending time on the Grinch's childhood? Why is this parade thing like a big deal? But
I went
Jim
to
Carrey puts his all into it. Ron Howard was the right choice to do it. It's like
Yep.
kind of a bad movie, but it's like kind of I get them wanting to do it. It's just funny that it led to the Cat in the Hat, which was so terrible, and I still haven't seen it to this day.
I
That it's
won't.
like the Dr. Seuss's estate are like, we are
Yeah,
never
for no more movies.
sanctioning a live action
I will
adaptation.
say that I went to Universal Studios several years ago for work, and they had Whoville. They had the whole castle, or not castle, City Hall or whatever it is, set up. It looks like it was painted in vomit. It is disgusting to look at.
Yeah. It's an
And,
ugly movie.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Like, that's one thing I will say about that movie is they committed to making that place look like a fucking vomit induced nightmare. It looks
A lot of
disgusting.
movies from that era are ugly though, in an interesting way, where it's like I remember thinking about this for Rush Hour 2, which actually holds up and is a good movie, but like the amount of effort that they put into a lot of stuff that today they clearly would CGI and not give a shit about. Production design movies from that era, production design is top notch. Not kind of now it's only the cream of the crop gets top production design because it's like an afterthought, but it still seems like you're in that, even though it's a terrible movie, you're in that world, like you're in Whoville, and that's why
I'm not a big Jim Carrey fan, but dude, he fucking sells that role, man. He convinces you of being the Grinch.
He gave it to Ron Howard, showed like 4-year-olds, and he was like, is this this guy or is this Jim Carrey? And it's like, no matter what. And he put it on mute, and just the way that he moved, every single 4-year-old was like, Jim Carrey, Jim Carrey, Jim Carrey, Jim Carrey.
Nice.
So it's like the amount of effort that went into it, even though it's not a good movie, is genuine. And it's like, I understand people my age are really nostalgic for it. I actually like the animated version better, even though I don't think, oddly enough, Benedict Cumberbatch, again, he always seems like he's miscast, and his voice as the Grinch never quite catches on. Yeah, and it's like cast an actual voice actor. That movie is boring. I remember my coworker who I got this version of the Grinch for said that I tried watching the animated one and I fell asleep, and she's like, it's not as good as the classic one. And I'm like, what one's that? And she's like, the Jim Carrey one. I'm like, oh no, there's a better version. She's like, what? And then I got her this on DVD. So watch the 30-minute one. It's a lesson in efficient storytelling. And then
Number 2.
Number 2, we all know who the top 2 are. Like, everybody has this conversation on top 10 Christmas movies. The top 2 are always the same because they're also one of the best movies ever made of the modern era. It's just that number 2 actually is probably the better movie, but it's Die Hard. And Die Hard kind of conflicts with my earlier argument because even though I'll consider it a Christmas movie, I won't start fights or anything, but you can divorce it from, and it's why later movies in the series like Die Hard 4 don't take place at Christmas, because it's like it's also equally good as an action movie.
I'd argue though, and I know we had this conversation before, Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. Die Hard is a movie that takes place at Christmas, and there's Christmas a big setting. Difference between those two things.
Yeah,
you can have a Christmas movie, or you can have a movie that's got a plot.
It has to give you some feeling of Christmas.
Yeah, that's a Christmas movie, but a movie can take place at Christmas.
It has the seasonal joy, but yeah, to me, it's like this in the subgenre of like Lethal Weapon, where it's like it takes place at Christmas, and you can really leverage that. And I believe this does. To me, it's like a July movie because it was released in the middle of July. But it's like people are so diehard about it being a Christmas movie that I'll be like, okay, I won't fight it. Now I have a machine gun too. Ho, ho.
Fucking survives on its own merit outside of, you want to call it a Christmas movie or not, it doesn't matter. That movie is a spectacularly well done movie.
I don't buy. Do you guys buy? How about you, Phil? The message of it being, oh, it's about family and stuff. And every time everybody brings up
No.
like family, like
no.
towards Evan, like somebody said that for a sequel that was announced for a movie coming out. It's like, oh, it's like a big sequel coming out next year. I can't remember. And they're like, well, it's actually about family. I'm like, what fucking movie isn't, since Fast and the Furious 6 is not about, or 7 is not about
fighting
family.
terrorists. That's all it is.
And it's like every single Rock movie. Oh, it's about family. Black Widow. Oh, it's about family. It's like, find another fucking theme, you losers. Get creative. But Die Hard, it's well directed, it's well acted, it's funny, the writing is good, the editing is good, it's edited, it accomplishes a lot. I remember rewatching it recently. It accomplishes a whole lot in 2 hours of deep characters. You have the news station subplot, even that one throwaway scene that no other movie would do today because it requires a whole nother set and too much effort, and it's why it had to be done by 20th Century Fox, is where they show the news scene and they're talking about the two news reporters fighting over the stories, like "Eat it, Harvey" and stuff like that. People wouldn't put that much effort unless, The Rock was in it. Like, they wouldn't have just actors. But it's that, the arc of Reginald Val Johnson's Al Powell, Sergeant, who he talks to, gets payoff.
The best part of the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge Family Matters fan.
He's the protagonist of the movie, actually, because he's the one with the arc. John McClane.
He's the one, that's carrying the audience through the entire movie. He's our exposition guy.
Yeah, he's the avatar, and he's the one who's like, I shot a kid, that's why I'm doing what I did. And he, because of John, changes, and that's technically the definition of like a protagonist, because he's proactive. So is John McClane, of course. Like, I'm not gonna. Sergeant Al Powell is the real hero, although he had the most to gain by doing Family Matters because of that movie. But yeah, it's a number two great movie.
The whole point is it's a great Christmas movie because at the end it celebrates murder, and that's what Christmas is all about.
Speaking of which, number one
is
murder.
Can you guys guess what it is? You guys got to know what it is.
Monsters Inc.
No.
Schindler's List.
No, but that did come out at Christmas. Keep you warm by the fire. It's Home Alone. It's Home Alone, of course.
The story about torture and trying to kill people, it's in the same vein.
Which is why it's a perfect bookend to my number 10, which was Better Watch Out, which is like a grown-up version of Home Alone. But this movie, also by 20th Century Fox, in that like late 80s, early 90s era, where they were taking an interesting risks, and they were like it's kind of funny how Home Alone and Die Hard get paired a lot with each other. There isn't very many movies I've rewatched as many times as Home Alone, or are as rewatchable. I think about now how Joe Pesci's performance works so well, because it's R-rated Joe Pesci in a family movie, and it fits so well. The whole ideas of the and like his intensity and being able to be both laughed at but also be convincing, of like when they finally get him, you're like, oh my god. And then Daniel Stern is actually underrated as the oaf. Catherine O'Hara is really good, really sells the desperation of her kid. Macaulay Culkin,
John Candy showing up for one fucking day. That scene just is perfect. And who knew that it could come together as an accident in one day?
Did you hear that he did it essentially for free? As a favor, and like he made a bit, we saw the movies that made it, so it's a good episode on it. And then the dad's also there, John Hurt. Don't really like him, which leads to all those questions of like, what did the dad do? Was he a mob boss accountant or that kind of thing to afford that McMansion or whatever? But the movie is well paced, good set pieces, really well directed, very funny. Physical comedy always sells when it's done well. The fact that they, for the score, wanted someone else, they couldn't do it, and then they're like, well, John Williams can do it. One of the greatest living composers. And the score for Home Alone is great. The renditions of like 12 Silver Bells and stuff, that reigns a sense of urgency. It's a great movie.
Not to mention, Macaulay Culkin is not terrible. He is pretty adequate in that movie as a child actor. He's one of the better child actors in that movie.
Do you think because he got older was the appeal, like, and he's not as good of an actor anymore, and he has enough money, he doesn't care, like the residuals on Home Alone would be enough? And Home Alone 2 I flip-flop on. it's a complete carbon copy. I like the setting better, even though it hits all the same notes. Dare I say, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I don't mind Home Alone 3. I'll probably never watch it, but I'm comfortable with that memory. But yeah, Home Alone, everything about it is very good. It's original, it's well paced, the production design is good, the performances are good, the direction is good, everybody in it is trying. And it's just, why don't they make movies like this anymore?
Yeah.
Good point.
And that was Will's Christmas. I was so worried you were going to go over time. I'm so happy. That was Will's Christmas favorite Christmas movie list. I'm just going to say words.
Yay.
And
Watchingcomplain.com. What's your website, Will?
Filmgamer.com, filmgamer.ca, and filmgamer.net.
And Rob?
Why COVID should wipe us all out.com.
Ah, yes, that new one you got yesterday.
It's a right-wing media website where we talk about how aliens gave us COVID.
Everyone say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.